So in this video, guys, we got a very interesting subject, man, and that is the stuff that was going on with these PPP loans and some of the gangs that were taking advantage of this. And this is not a secret. I mean, everybody knew this was going on. Now, there's actually several gangs that were taking part in this, and I may break these down in separate videos. I don't know if I can bang this all out in one video, man, but as you guys know, as they're reporting, when COVID-19 struck in 2020, the government quickly put up together massive aid programs to help struggling businesses. This is being reported by the media, along with the people who lost their jobs. But some other organizations like street gangs, and in particular, the traveling vice lords here in Chicago, and a gang called the Wild 100s, they took advantage of this. And the Wild 100s that's what they refer to as like an area of Chicago down in Roseland and, the Pullman area down way on the far south side. But that's also the name of a gang apparently up in Wisconsin. So they said that they soon figured out how to take advantage of that safety net, and they defrauded those programs of millions of dollars that they used to buy guns and drugs. According to the U.S. Justice Department and court records, and I personally knew people who were doing this, and it was like a cash cow. I mean, people were making tons of money in the streets. People were openly admitting to this on interviews. There were so many people doing it that it just flooded, the system with fraud. And the thing is, this was so easy to do. Government really didn't tie up enough of the loose ends in this, but incarcerated criminals, they said, were in on the act. The government estimates that across the country, at least $250 million in fraudulent unemployment insurance benefits went to inmates in federal prison. So we're talking about $250 million. It was no secret, they said. So a Tennessee rapper named Nuke Bizzle got 6 years in prison after admitting that he pocketed more than $700,000 in bogus COVID-19 unemployment insurance benefits. He glorified the scams in his music videos. They got almost 300,000 views. So he said, quote, "You got to sell cocaine. I just file a claim." He's a 34-year-old rapper. His real name is Fontrell. He brags about that on the video. So in Chicago, this is interesting, man. I had seen Chicago King Dave interviewed about this, not this particular topic, but just about the violence in general a few months ago. And he was saying that when the government put all that money in the hood with this stuff, that the violence got worse. Now, this is a topic of debate in academia, in government, talking about like why the violence is so bad. It's because of lack of resources. They need resources. When we give them resources, the violence will stop. They poured all these resources, and it got worse because the new resources were doing, guess what? Gang members, okay, and this is the point that I keep on making again and again, and I'll go into this more at the end of the video, have a particular lifestyle, okay, a mentality and a culture. And regardless of how much money they are getting, they continue to live that lifestyle. You give them money, they just use the money to fund their lifestyle. So guess what they were doing? They get all these hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, 700 grand, that's plenty of money to go start a legitimate business, multiple legitimate businesses. You can buy like a Subway franchise for like 50, 70K. Okay, so you're talking about the guy could have like started, 10 fast food restaurants with that. Okay, so in Chicago, the price of illegal guns soared during the pandemic. Okay, guys had more money to spend on guns, so the price of guns went up. The gangs were able to pay for them, they said, with the fraudulent COVID-19 relief proceeds. Guys were just using the money to get fly, buy guns, buy dope. In Milwaukee, a gang member even used ill-gotten coronavirus relief benefits to pay for a man to be killed. So he used the money that they gave him for COVID that he could have used to go to college, start a legitimate business. He used to put out a hit on somebody. They said, "We've repeatedly seen a connection between violent crime, violent criminal street gangs, and the COVID fraud space throughout the country." That's according to a guy named Michael Gallo, who's the director of COVID-19 fraud enforcement for the Justice Department. He said, "I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like this in terms of the fraud. Word got around pretty quickly that these programs were vulnerable, and they were highly vulnerable. So online chat channels explained how to steal COVID benefits, but they were hosted outside the United States, so the government couldn't take them down. So these chat rooms, if the hosting party is not in the U.S., there's nothing they can do about it, okay, because they're not subject to the laws of the U.S. People in the U.S. still have access to them, but these are not American websites. So in June, the Inspector General for the Small Business Administration, which oversaw Paycheck Protection Program loans and economic injury disaster loans, estimated that at least 17% of the $1.2 trillion that was handed out by those programs was obtained through fraud. So the Justice Department says more than 3,000 people nationwide have been charged with COVID-19 benefits fraud. So anyways, that's how many people so far they've charged. Government watchdogs say that a key reason the cheating was possible was that applicants were not required to give detailed documentation of their work histories and business records, which is something they should have done. People from all walks of life got in on the illegal money grab, including cops and teachers in Chicago. So cops were even doing this, okay? Human beings, okay, you gotta understand, man, are inherently, and I don't mean like from birth, little babies are innocent, but very quickly after that, people become totally selfish and evil. So you have to keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff, man. This is to the government. I mean, they're just putting this money in front of people, and like it's like dangling a steak in front of a dog. The thing is gonna grab it. So anyways, there's also growing evidence that street criminals scam PPP loans and other pandemic relief aid at staggering levels. They said it's safe to make the leap between PPP funds going into gangs and funding their narcotics trafficking activity, and to some extent also gun purchases. That's according to Jeffrey Strauss, who's a Chicago supervisory special agent with U.S. Homeland Security Investigations. So he leads a team that works with the Chicago Police Department, IRS, and other agencies to investigate drug dealing gangs. His team used wiretaps to listen to gang members' phone conversations. He said it became pretty apparent just by the nature of the communications on those wires that these guys were working together to obtain either PPP loans or other benefits like unemployment insurance. He said it was very general talk. Like, for example, hey, did you get that money yet? Or hey, did you file that paperwork yet? But nothing down in the weeds as to how to do it. So gang members applied for loans for made-up businesses, including barbershops, janitorial services, and landscaping companies. They used their PPP money, the loans that in most cases didn't need to be repaid, to buy guns from other gang members, and sometimes employed straw purchasers, who are people that can legally buy firearms at gun stores to get firearms for them in Illinois and out of state. So he says the price of illegally sold Glock handguns, which is, they said, a high-quality weapon of choice for Chicago gang members, went up during the pandemic. He says street Glocks rose in price from about $700 to more than $1,000. So even more when equipped with an extended magazine and an illegal device known as a switch. And you guys know that the switch, it converts it to automatic fire. So he says the rise in prices on the street probably was due to a scarcity of guns during the pandemic, that PPP loan gave members the cash to still buy Glocks even at the inflated prices. So he said that money somehow contributed to the rest of the violence in the city with drug trafficking and the gun trade and all that stuff. He said guns weren't the only thing Chicago gang members were after. They also were using PPP money to buy expensive cars and other toys. So to get an idea, they said, of how prevalent such fraud was among the street criminals, that Chicago Sun-Times examined 15 federal gun and drug cases in Chicago since the pandemic began in early 2020. The names of many of the defendants matched the names and addresses of people listed in applications for PPP loans according to an SBA database. So many of the loans were about $20,000. Some of those names were linked to multiple loans. The loans were forgivable, meaning that they didn't need to be repaid. So to get the maximum loan of about 20 grand, applicants who said that they were in business on their own, operating a single proprietorship, needed to show that their business made at least $100,000 the previous year. So one member of, they said, the media said O-Block, but he's really Dipset, Kenny Mack, on the south side, they said boasted that it was easy to get a PPP loan. He's one of the guys who was on trial for killing Epi Duck. I don't think he was personally a shooter in that, but I don't know. So according to an FBI affidavit, an inmate at the Cook County Jail had called Kenny Mack on June 19, 2020. This is a few months before Duck was shot. The call lasted 11 minutes. Kenny and the inmate discussed PPP loan fraud, okay? And Kenny explained that a person applying for a PPP loan didn't need a federal employee ID number, but could just use a social security number. And see, these are things the government should have had in place, man. So Kenny allegedly told the inmate, and these guys that are doing this got to remember, all these jail conversations can be heard by the cops, man. Everybody that's out there talking about illegal stuff on the phone with a guy in jail, the police can listen to this stuff, man. It's like telling it straight to the cops. You guys say you'll never snitch, but you're talking about illegal activity on the phone with a guy in Cook County Jail. That's like telling it directly into the cops' ear. But anyways, Kenny allegedly told the inmate on this phone, I'm telling them that I'm doing agriculture. My business under my name, they can't do nothing about it. So He didn't own an agricultural business and he wasn't employed. Also charged in the Epic Duck case, as you guys know, are Cmurda, Marcus, who's 24, to Carlos, he's 32, Ralph, he's 34, and Chris, he's 24. So, anyways, man, that was how Kenny Mac, had basically let the cops know what was going on with this PPP stuff. On applications for the PPP loan, some of those men used numbers for phones that later would be considered evidence in Duck's killing. According to the FBI affidavit, Kenny applied for a loan on June 10th of 2020. Cmurda had also applied for one. All of them were charged with violent racketeering activity, but none of them is charged with PPP fraud. So Kenny Mac's lawyer wouldn't discuss the client's case, but he says the PPP program, he said, was the modern day version of the mortgage craze that gave way to the financial crisis. And I kind of disagree, because this was illegal. That was not illegal. I admit it's the same as far as, like, in principle, they're giving away money to people they shouldn't probably have given money to. But, I mean, one is illegal, the other one's not. So you can't charge the people who took those mortgages with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something you can put them in jail for. But anyone could get easy money, he said. And the more the banks gave away, the more they got paid. So anyways, that's what was going on with Kenny Mac. Probably going to make another video on how the Wild 100s gang in Milwaukee was using this, because they actually used some of this to put out a hit on somebody's mom or sister, offering 50 grand. And that was crazy, man. So this video is going to go too long, but I'll make another video probably on that. But yeah, that's what's going on, man, with Kenny Mac on the side and with Cmurda and some of these guys on the side. But none of them are charged with that. None of them are charged with that, man. But yeah, all you guys talking about this stuff with guys in jail, that's even worse than talking about the stuff in music videos. Because, I mean, you're telling it, like, they can use that. They can't use a music video, but they can use this, what I'm saying, as evidence. So, I mean, it's up to you guys, man. But I'm not trying to, help, guys who are out there doing crime stay free. But the reason I'm pointing this out is because a lot of you guys point fingers. You guys always start pointing fingers, like, whenever somebody gets booked, like, well, this guy must have been talking this way. And all you guys were all talking, on yourselves, like, the whole time, right to the cops, So, anyways, man, that's all I got for today. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. It's your boy, Chicago News. I'm out.